Hey, this is Shane Grove, the host of the From the Shadows podcast. And I want to welcome everybody to this throwback episode of the Midweek Howl. Now, for all of our new listeners and subscribers, and we did get a bunch, thanks to our 500th episode with Wes, and welcome to the Midweek Howl. And you might be asking, what the heck is the Midweek Howl? Well, the Midweek Howl is something we do every Wednesday as kind of a fun little conversation between me and a fellow that we call the Ozark Howler. He's a retired law enforcement, FBI, Homeland Security officer who's just one heck of a funny storyteller. And the episode that you're going to hear, if you stick around, like I said, this is not a paranormal episode. Is one of our early Midweek Howl episodes, and for all of our longtime listeners, you're going to get to hear the dearly departed super producer Jason on here, which may make you feel all warm and fuzzy. So, to everybody new, thanks for tuning in, and hopefully you will dig this episode and stick around.
Hello, and welcome to the From the Shadows podcast. I am the producer, Jason Lewis. I would like to thank you for tuning in to the From the Shadows podcast. And without further ado, here is your host, Shane Grove.
Hey, welcome everybody to this week's Midweek Howl. Of course, I'm joined by Jason, the super producer, and
Greetings.
the Ozark Howler. How's it going, Howler?
I tell you, if it got any better, I couldn't live with myself.
Okay, all right, I'll
That's
take
good.
that. I'll take that. In this day of sheltering in place and social distancing, you might only be able to live with yourself.
Right.
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 My kids are tired of living with me. I assure you that. You know,
Well, your son's only been back for what? A
for
week?
15 days. 15 days. He's out of. Americans, they self-quarantined, right? Which means they took his temperature, did a few checks there when he got off the flight at Chicago, and then he quarantined in my car for 6.5 hours back to the house, and now he's been in the house for 14 days. Now the exchange student I had staying with me here, she went back to Taiwan, and she has been in a hotel room at the airport for 8 days. I mean, they mean it over there. Americans quarantines kind of,
Yeah.
I don't know. You know what I mean? We just do it the way we want it, like everything else. So,
Oh yeah, I know. My parents they're on their way back they got back tonight from Florida, being there since probably the first of the year. My stepdad was ready to jump right back in the semi truck and do some trucking for the farm, and I think my brother-in-law said, you're going to have to wait a little bit.
Well, why'd he come back? It's still wintertime. It's going to be cold this week.
You know how farmers are. They're itching to get back to do something.
Must be a tax break in it or something for him.
No. I don't know who told you that.
That's right. I used to be when I was a trooper, I was up in farm country, and ag stuff, they're exempt from so many things, and mainly trucking rules because of ag products. But you're out there in the middle of nowhere. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah,
section on top of section on top of section of farms, and there's really no reason to get in accidents, but they do. Which
Right.
leads me. I told you guys pre-show that I was going to tell a hitchhiking story. They had a deal where we had to work midnights. It's 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. in the wintertime in these what they call rural zones. So you were out here in the absolute middle of nowhere, November through February, and in these small towns, everybody goes to bed at 8 or 9 o'clock in the wintertime. There's nothing going on. Yet we were required to drive around and, I don't catch somebody doing something, promote traffic safety, whatever they said. So I'm driving down the road one day, 4-lane highway, just north of the interstate, middle of nowhere. It's blowing snow, and it's between Christmas and New Year's. So, but I don't. It's between Christmas and New Year's. So Christmas was a couple days ago. New Year's is coming up, and there's a guy walking, hitchhiking down the highway, and it's blowing snow, midnight, whatever time it was, and with brand new Carhartt. So the thing I thought, first of all, he was odd that there was even anybody out there. Second of all, it's dangerous to be out there in the blowing snow hitchhiking. And the third of is when I pulled up and turned my flashers on, he had a brand new pair of boots and a brand new pair of Carhartts.
Well, yeah, it was just Christmas. What do we expect?
And yeah, well, yeah, I guess I should have thought that. Maybe that's what I did think at. So I jump out. I don't even know if I jump out. I think I just rolled the passenger side window down. That's back 25 years ago before everybody got scared. Now they don't. Cops think everybody's going to shoot them, but back in them days, we gave people the benefit of the drought. And if it was cold, I wouldn't want to get out of the car anyway. So anyway, I put the window down. I said, "Hey, where are you going?" And he told me a town about 60 miles away, straight north of me. And I said, "Okay." I said, "Hey, man, hop on in. I'll start taking you that direction." And and I give him the spiel how hitchhiking was illegal, which I don't know if it was or not, but I always heard it growing up. So that's what I told him. But I asked him before we, I had a big fat blue book. I could look it up, but I didn't.
Yeah, you hadn't got that far.
It's like you always heard driving. My mom always said driving barefoot was illegal. That's one of the things I asked when I was in the Trooper Academy. Is barefoot illegal? And they looked at me and said, "What kind of hillbilly people? If driving barefoot was illegal, who would drive in West Virginia or South Missouri? The roads would be empty." So I quit asking questions. But anyway,
if you can marry your sister, you ought to be able to drive barefoot.
Hey, you know what they say? If you ain't good enough for her family, who is? How's that go? If your family's not good enough for you, who is? Ain't anyhow. So we had a policy that we were supposed to run people's driver's license and run them for wants and warrants and see if they're wanted before we could give them a ride, or when we had these interactions. And this guy was being very respectful. So I asked him for his ID. Out comes the Department of Corrections prisoner ID, which tells me why he's been so nice. Because if they've been handled as the illustrious producer understands, some of the old guys have been around a little bit. They are because they don't want no problem. So he says he got out on like a bereavement leave. So anyway, of course, I run him. He gets a P&P, probation parole hit right out of the gate. He just got released, but he was what they call interstate compact. So I think he was out of Arkansas or Oklahoma, but he had permission to be in Missouri. So essentially, they swap parolees is the way I understand it. So if you're released in Oklahoma or one of these other states and you want to go back to your people and they're in Missouri, we take the Missouri people and they'll take the Oklahoma people or vice versa. So it was the interstate compact. And I don't remember, it wasn't like he wasn't Jack the Ripper or anything, but he had done 10, 12, 14 years and was getting out because his mom was the cancer. So they release him. He gets on the road. He had a store. They gave him the Department of Corrections. They give him a new set of boots because I guess he was a good guy or whatever. So they basically give him a new gray uniform or whatever, and some new boots. And some Christians along the way had bought him these Carhartts because it's wintertime. But I put him in the car and I said, "Hey man, this is the deal. I'm gonna start driving you north to the county line." And there's what we call the zone line, which is the county line too. It's about 30 miles of his 60-mile journey. And I said, if they don't call me between here and there, I'll take you up there. But if I get a call, I'm gonna have to stop the car and you're gonna have to get out, dude. Oh, I appreciate it. Good inmate. He found the Lord in prison, and that was water under the bridge. And he wasn't a bad old guy. And I ended up taking him, since it was Christmas time and everything, I took him the whole 61, 62 miles, whatever it is, all the way to his dying mother's house. What do you think of that? 10:30 at night.
You're just quite the individual.
Well, I don't know. I have a soft spot for hitchhikers. Because I'll tell you what, when I first started my law enforcement career, I worked for an old kind of Southern sheriff, if you would. Now, he was educated. He had a master's degree and could play piano. But deep down, he really wanted to be Buford Pusser. And when he'd see hitchhikers, he'd seen hitchhikers, he'd roll up there and he'd want you to take them, just like the old sayings, across the county line. He'd want you to take them across the county line, dump them in the next county or whatever. So as a cop, I picked up a lot of hitchhikers and stuff. And yeah. And, I don't know if I should tell this story, but I'm going to. So as a young deputy, before I was a patrolman, I picked up several hitchhikers. I just got in the habit. You're the cops. You roll up, you check them once and once, you bring them to county line. Well, I had the odd part about getting into law enforcement is, and not just adulthood. How as you grow up, you hang out with different people. You know what I mean? As the arc of life takes on, the people you used to hang out with might not be the people you hang out with now. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
It seems like it should make sense, but I'm still hanging out with the judge, and I'm waiting for that arc to.
There's always that exception, I guess.
Yeah. So anyhow, I was a deputy, and and as things change, you quit going to. First of all, you got to work a lot of nights and weekends. So people think, well, they say stuff like, well, you're too good for us now. No, it's just I got to work every dang weekend now, or 3 weekends a month, or whatever. So I got invited down here, and there's a place called in Herman, Missouri. Every year they have a MyFest in May and an Oktoberfest, big German town. And I had a friend of mine that said, hey, we're getting together a bunch of guys, a bunch of people to go down to Herman for the weekend, or not a weekend. It was a day trip, And I always drove Suburbans. I still, up until a month ago, I've had a Suburban for the last 25 years of some variants. But back in the 90s, I had real, the kind of Suburban single guys have, jacked up with big tires. Okay. So I got invited to go to this MyFest deal, but that's the way it works when you drive Suburbans. You get invited to a lot of things, but you have to drive.
Yeah.
So I go down to this deal. I'm like 22, 23. I don't know. I'm not early 20s. I go down to this deal. I got 2 or 3 guys I went to high school with, and there's a half a dozen girls that I just met. I don't know anybody. I don't know any of the girls, really. I know the dudes. So we go down this town, Herman, and some of these girls get sloppy drunk. And I don't know if you know what the term sloppy drunk means where you're from, but where I'm from, and back in the 90s,
I think it's the same. I think it's the same.
It's terrible. And they had been needling me because I'm not a drinker. They had been needling at, sometimes when you're a non-drinker and you're on drinkers, they take some kind of offense to that. You're better than me. You're too good. You're shaking your head. You know what I'm talking about. So,
amen. I know.
Sometimes they take so they take an offense. And the longer the day went, the couple of these, I know it's hard for me to tell you, these girls, if you will, early 20s girls, they just had a problem with me, and they messed with me. And now they rode down there with me. Okay. And they messed with me, and and it's time to leave. They all got in this rock, and they could kind of tell I was not really upset, but I was tired of them. You know what I mean? They had nothing to offer me, and they just, so for some reason it came out. Not really came out. They thought I was upset because I wanted gas money or something. So these people, they take up this collection. I don't know how much money it was, but up front here, they pass up a handful of money. And this is back when $30-$40 was money. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Gas was $1 a gallon sort of thing. And I just told them, I said, I don't want your effing money. And I rolled the window down and threw it out. And they went berserk and called it their money. Okay? They called it their money. I said, it's not your money. It's my money. You gave it to me, so you relinquished it. It's my money. And as I'm having this argument we crest the hill, and there's a guy with his thumb out. And now he's got a thumb out. In his other hand, he's got a pair of fishing poles. Now, and a guitar on his back. And when you run across a man with a guitar on his back and 2 fishing poles, you got to pick him up. You just got to. So I hogged that thing over and the whole time they were going, and I actually passed him by, and they were, because I said I'm getting him, and I started hitting the brakes, and they were all these sloppies in the back that were mad. They instantly forgot about their money that I tossed out the window, and they kind of heckled him a little bit, and I said I'm getting him. And I had to back up on the shoulder about 150 yards. And the whole time they're going, no, he's going to drive away. He's going to drive away. There's no way he's going to let this guy in the back seat. There's no way he's going to let this. And he walked up to the window, and I put the back, because it's all power, Chevy Suburban, Silverado. So I put the back passenger window down, and I said, hey, man, I'll give you a ride, but you got to get in the back, because the front seat's got buckets with a console. So now he's jacking around. He's got 2 fishing poles and a guitar. He doesn't know what he's going to do. I said, well, just try to put him in the back. So they got this stranger in him, and his fishing poles were put together, so like 6-7 feet long or whatever. So he opens the double back doors on this Suburban, and these fishing poles are swinging around these drunks' heads, you know what I mean? And they don't know what to do. And I tell him, just take them apart. So he finally gets all this stuff in the back. Okay. But he wants to hold his guitar. So some gals in the middle jump to the 3rd seat with some dudes that are back there, because nobody wants to sit by him. He's a freaking hitchhiker. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Walking down a damn country road. So he hops up in the passenger side back seat, and he's got his guitar with the neck up, like you'd hold like you'd hold an M16 in the back of a Humvee or something,
Mm-hmm.
And of course, nobody wants to sit by him, and he smells like he's been drinking a little bit. And he wasn't, he wasn't all didn't look like a criminal. He just looked like a, dude in his early 30s or whatever. So we start going down the road, and of course, I put the windows up and turn the air on a little bit so I can hear a story. And I'm carrying conversation on. Where are you headed? Oh, I don't know. I'm really wanting to go to Lake Ozark, and I want to do some fishing. And he seemed a good old boy. He's going to do some fishing and some songwriting. And
all right.
And, yeah, I mean, it's right. I mean, this guy's the next Leonard Skinner right here or something, right? You never know. Who knows? No, it goes full on Johnny Paycheck pretty quick, because that's it all. He just got out of jail.
Oh, yeah, okay. All right.
I said, what you doing in jail? Oh, it's bullshit. You know how it is. And I said, yeah, I know how. Of course, he don't know I'm a cop,
Mm-hmm.
I said, how it is. I said, what do they allege you did? And he said, well, I shot this fucker. And of course, when he says shot that fucker, they wanted to. Now they're scared. You got these suburban middle class white girls, sloppy drunk. They never dreamed. They never seen a hitchhiker until this one's in the truck.
He shot somebody.
Yeah, he shot somebody, and I forgot who he shot. But the bottom line was, he didn't know if he wanted to go to the lake, because he didn't know. He's facing 25 years, he said, 25 years to life or something, you know how it is. But mom hocked the house to the courthouse so he could get out of jail, supposed to use the property as bond.
Right.
And at first he was going to run away, but now he didn't know if he's going to, and he just wanted to go down there and do a little fishing first. And then he'd like to run to Mexico, but he didn't want to, because then mom would lose her house. And so for 60 miles, of course, we're driving for half a mile, out on a little bit, and he could smell the liquor,
Yeah.
And he knows there's a cooler in the back, and it's theirs, not mine. And it's my fest. It's Herman thing. They got a bunch of wineries there, so they got all these bottled wine and stuff. I said, hey man, you don't want to drink, do you? Oh, I'm not supposed to. It's one of my conditions to be out. I said, they got some wine in the back. I'm sure them girls will get you some. I said, get him and I forgot what his name, Pete or something. I said, hey, why don't y'all get Pete here a bottle of wine or something? And they were so scared they got it out. They couldn't get it in and fast enough. He rode about 45 miles. They got to our eggs, and I said, hey man, you're gonna have to get out, dude. Sorry, this is where we get off. Can I hang out with you? And I said, nah, the law around here is too steep. I mean, you probably better go ahead and get on out.
So what happened to old Pete? You ever find out?
He put the guitar on his back and started walking. I tell you, that's what he did. I'll tell you another good hitchhiking story. This is where I was a hitchhiker. I'm with this undercover cop, and we went up to this bar in St. Louis for something. I don't remember what the deal was. And I had it doesn't matter. I had a pickup. I used to be a truck guy, and I had this Z71 pickup. And this is the early 90s when they were new. And it had a problem sometimes with the transmission. And I had it supposedly fixed. It was one of them friendly deals because my brother worked at the Chevy dealership. So it's like, you don't want to pay big bills, so they're going to fix it on the down low, but they don't really fix it because you're really not a paying customer. So they just half-ass, that's what we call it. So we're coming back from East St. Louis. I don't think we were in East St. Louis. We were straight St. Louis. And and this is back when some people had a bag phone, some people had that brick phone, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
And he was an undercover guy, so he had the brick and I had the bag. The problem is when the truck broke down, we didn't have nobody to call because nobody else had a cell phone. The only people that had cell phones were cops. Okay. We're in the truck together. So we're sitting there going, God, what are we going to do? I don't know what we're going to do. And we're on Interstate 70 in Missouri, and I'm sure Interstate 70 is kind of like you guys got 70 back in Ohio. It's nothing to be messing around with. You know what I mean? And we're sitting there in this van that looks like a cross between the A-Team van and the Flintstone, or not the Flintstone, but who's the
Scooby-Doo
van. It rolls up.
The Mystery Machine, right?
The front passenger seat is vacant. Now, my buddy's with me. He's an undercover guy, so he got a ponytail. I mean, he looks the look, right? Guy puts the passenger side window down. You guys need a lift? Where are you headed to? Well, we're headed westbound. And we had, my buddy looks at me and says, well, we can take it to Kingdom City, and then we're 30 minutes from home. We know a bunch of cops that'll drive over there and pick us up. You know what I mean? That at least gets us into near the county he works in, which adjoins the county I work in. You know what I mean? So we get there, we'd be home free, right?
Right.
So we said, yeah. He said, well, hop on in. And we go into my buddy went to open the back passenger because I'm the bigger of the two. I'm going to sit in the front. When my buddy goes open the back passenger side van, you know how they slide open on full size vans. The guy says, no, man, both y'all need to sit up here. And it's a van. There ain't nothing up there but there's 2 bucket seats in like a dog house. And he's got like one of them little 6-pack Igloo coolers there, He says, you can sit on the cooler. And when I opened that door and dome light come on, the back was full of Mexicans, probably 15, 18.
Oh my goodness.
This is back when 15 or 18 Mexicans was a bunch. And they kind of cowered down a little bit, my buddy jumps in because we had looked at each other like, should we even get in this van? But we both got guns. My buddy's undercover. He's got a gun. I got a gun because that's what we did back in them days. So here we are rolling down the road. He's sitting on the cooler, truck full of Mexicans. And they had done a bunch of construction work. And we had drove through on the eastbound tie going to St. Louis when we're coming back. So they had the 4 lanes. You know how they'll run it down to get it down to 2 lanes. So it's coned up. The one side over to the other side and runs down, but as you're going, it's nighttime and construction sites. So there's like 25 yellow lighted dump trucks or construction sites, but like 1 cop car on the end. So when they seen all them lights, it was fight or flight. All those, I don't want to say Mexican, all those Hispanic misplaced.
I understand.
Back. You better just stick to Mexicans, right?
Well, I don't know who your audience is, so I don't want to mess y'all's audience up. I don't want to cost y'all no viewers, but so we had 20 of them in the back, and they didn't know. And as they're slowing down, the slower we're getting, I'm thinking they're going to start bailing out. I mean, it's going to look like Normandy and D-Day. That slide door's going to slide open, man in the door go. Or something, they're going to start. I got to kind of soothe them to the uprising, he's trying to tell him it's just construction. What do you mean? I said, it's just construction or yellow lights. Don't worry about it. I said, that one cop sitting there, he can't go nowhere because he's just, if he leaves, he won't be there for him to see. You know, he's like for decoration. And then the whole time I'm telling this guy, he's got to relay it to and you know, he translates to the back. And there we are sliding through this thing 15, 18 miles an hour. And every time there's another another truck with the lights, the first three behind me, they were in the hot seat. They wanted to bail. And I had to smooth them. And the whole time I'm thinking, oh my God, what am I going to do if we get pulled over? Because we're going to be in this truckload next. Ain't no way they're going to believe me and Rob. That's the job. You know, you're going to figure he's on the take, or we're some kind of mules, or, you know, because that you read back then that didn't happen, but as much, or you don't think it did. Yeah, I don't think we were mule and Mexicans. I can see it already. You know. No.
Wow. Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of the From the Shadows podcast. Until next time, never shy away from the darkness or what may be lurking in the shadows. We are out.